Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off, so it's me and you. When Eric's gone, I changed positions in the studio and just busy trying to organize everything because there's so much to talk about today. And I look in front of me, there's 3 microphones, and I don't know which one I'm on. And so if there was a little pause of me getting on, that was the problem. It's like, what microphone am I going to use here? There's 3 of them sitting right in front of me. And I'm like, which one is it? Oh, man. So I have the right one, though. So we're all set. Before we go any further, just something that we had asked for the last couple of days about any deal. And, you know, we know that the deal that the Republicans were talking about, that's dead. Republicans didn't like it. Democrats didn't like it. So where they are now, who knows? But I did find out. I did do some research and finally found out, because one of the things we talked about is so many of the stories you could not find, you know, the specifics of do they want to claw back money from the big beautiful bill, or is it for future spending? It's for future spending. That $75 billion would still be there to fund ICE. The Republicans want additional spending for it, and that's what the Democrats don't want. And the Democrats also want to put certain rules and regulations on ICE, and the Republicans have said no on that. So that's where we stand right now on that, which I thought was interesting. And so we'll see where it goes. I have no idea where it's going to go right now. Trump said, you know, he's going to call up the National Guard if need be. But one thing that has happened is that ICE has had a great deal of success at the airports that they have been at, and so that's a good thing. What else do I want to start the show off with here? Oh yeah, we had a talk yesterday, because one of the questions that I get all the time from Republicans is, you know, are we going to lose the House? Are we going to lose the Senate? And we talked about the challenges and the problems that the Republicans have. But one of the things that we have said over and over again is that the Republicans' best chance of winning is the Democrats. Because whatever the numbers are for Republicans, they're lower for Democrats. And it was interesting because as I was going through looking at a bunch of different op-ed pieces from a variety of different publications out there, I came upon Karl Rove in the Wall Street Journal. Republicans' biggest asset, Democrats. Even with the GOP's numbers underwater, the other parties are somehow worse. Goes, the outcome of the midterms largely depends on the popularity of the president. His job approval in the Real Clear Politics average of recent polls is only 41.3%, with 56.3% disapproval. A president's approval numbers this low generally precede a significant loss of House seats for his party. But Mr. Trump's popularity isn't the only consequential number. The RCP average for the Democrats is at 35.8% and favorable at 55.7%. The Republican Party does better. How did the Democrats become less popular than Donald Trump? This is my favorite line of his op-ed piece. How did the Democrats become less popular than Mr. Trump? It took many years, much hard work, wacky policy stances, and plenty of missteps. even the Real Clear Politics generic House ballot is a problem for the Democratic Party's midterm prospects. Although Democrats lead Republicans 46.9 to 42.1%, that might point to only modest Democrat gains in the House. Only a handful of districts is up for grab this fall. Prognosticators suggest there are 17 districts that are toss-up. 13 are held by Republicans, 4 by Democrats. On top of these are 13 seats held by Democrats and 2 held by Republicans that lean blue, and 1 Democratic and 3 Republican seats that lean red. Finally, there are 2 GOP seats and 1 held by an independent that are considered solidly Democrat after recent redistricting shenanigans. Altogether, though, that isn't a lot of targets for Democrats. If they swept all 39 at-risk seats, that would translate into a gain of 21. That's about half the 41-seat boost that they saw in 2018 when their generic ballot advantage before the election was 7.3%. Congressional Democrats are not doing much to advance their cause. Their affordability agenda is not good. Many Democratic candidates act as if trashing Mr. Trump is all they need to do. The public also increasingly blames Democrats for the federal government shutdown. Air travelers standing in line for hours to get through security might wish to just go after all politicians, but the Democratic insistence on no funding for ICE is playing to the base. It is led by senior House Democrat Virginia's Don Beyer to concede the tactic isn't forcing any changes. In the meantime, we're making people hurt. Democrats missed an off-ramp during Markwayne Mullin's confirmation hearings for Homeland Security Secretary. Democrats could have pressed him to negotiate in good faith on specific changes they wanted. This would have given Americans a better idea of the Democrats' demands, the reason that they have to wait in those TSA lines. If Mullin refused to negotiate, Democrats could have voted against him and had a better argument to make against voters. If he did negotiate, they might have gotten much of what they wanted. Instead, they look bad. To make things worse, leading Democrats keep saying foolish things in public. Governor Gavin Newsom claimed California is a lower tax state than Texas or Florida. Eric and I never got to that one. That was blown out of the water, by the way. Tell that to all the tax refugees leading the Golden State. Governor Kathy Hochul, running in 2022, told New York Republicans to just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong. Okay, get out of town. Last week, she said she's looking for people with high net worth to support the generous social programs of New York. Maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you could bring back home. Ms. Hochul may have discovered that it was a mistake to raise taxes, but her answer isn't to cut them and restrain spending. It's to find what she calls patriotic millionaires who'd move back north. Good luck with that. Even with all that going against the Democrats, Republicans have to up their game, and soon the off-year and special elections have been awful for the GOP. The White House is counting on a successful end of the Iranian conflict and a booming economy with dropping inflation in the third quarter. If these don't materialize, and the latter is unlikely, the GOP will be left to hope. Democrats keep providing vivid contrast points that drive swing voters rightward. So, and I would agree with him on that analysis. I've disagreed with Rove at times on other things, but I think he's right on that. But because everything really comes down to prices. But on on the Iranian situation, it all depends on how. If you had what the president was talking about in his 8-minute speech when the military action started, and you had the people of Iran on the streets all cheering, and some type of interim government in there, and forces protecting the nuclear stockpile, but really the imagery of the Iranians cheering would be huge, because then there's no way you couldn't look at this and say, wow, we finally got to the point of freeing Iran. Look at these hundreds of thousands of people that are celebrating. Yeah, it's going to be a tough go, But now you've got other Middle Eastern countries saying they want to help Iran. They want to do peace deals with Israel. You get to that point, I don't know. I don't think that it would change as many independents as I would like because of the price problem right now, because of prices and where they are right now. And gasoline, that's a problem. And the president knows it's a problem. They all know it's a problem. And that's why the president keeps saying, we want this thing, we're going to take it to a conclusion soon. Saw the Wall Street Journal. It's like Trump telling his people, we need to wrap this thing up. This war can't go on forever. And it's like, well, what's you saw criticism yesterday, even from Republican leadership. We don't know what they plan on doing. Well, I'll tell you this. One of the reasons you may not, and I think it was Mark Halperin who had it yesterday. Mark Halperin who said it yesterday. He was like, "Look," he goes, "They don't want to let Republicans or Democrats know what's going on. They're afraid of leaks. They're especially afraid that Democrats will leak what the war plan is, because if you saw that was one of the headlines that came out of it. Republican leadership wants to know what's going on. Why aren't they telling us?" And it's like, they don't want it to be leaked. The other thing is, when it comes to how you end the war, we don't know yet. What is the conclusion of the war? What does that mean? We'll go through the damage that has been done to Iran. And those are legitimate questions, but as we said from the very beginning, those Democrats that are out there saying, Iran is winning the war. It's like, you're delusional. At the minimum, as we have said, they've set back at the very, very minimum. Even if the Revolutionary Guard stays in power, at the minimum, they're done for the longest time. And there's been a lot of discussion. Will the administration, declare victory, cooperation with parts of whatever the Iranian government is, and at the same time, Israel has the approval from the United States to go and mop up whatever they wish to mop up. That's part of some of the discussion that I was seeing yesterday from, especially certain military, a bunch of different military experts saying, okay, what do you do at this point? How do you politically win this and at the same time strategically win this? And you win that through Israel. Keeping, military action going in specific ways. What does the president plan on doing with the troops that are being sent over to the Middle East? We don't know. And he's not saying. And if I'm President Trump, with all the leaks that he has had, and even in his administration, people that wish to work against him, as we saw with Joe Kent, I wouldn't tell anybody anything either. I'm not going to tell you what my military strategy is. We want to win this. I don't trust you. Anybody trust Democrats not to leak what the president's plan would be if he announced to even the highest leaders of Congress? Look, they don't give a damn about American citizens. Those same Democrat leaders want sanctuary cities. They wish to protect criminal illegal immigrants. So no. You don't get it. Now the president will be judged on however this thing ends up. But in the meantime, as every president would be, by the way, but in the meantime, I wouldn't. The last thing I do is be telling members of Congress, here's what we plan on. Well, we need to know exactly what the war plan is at this particular point. No. I don't trust you. You'll leak it. So there's where we are right now. All right. Did I say Eric Sound? Yeah. There's so much to talk about. Got a great show. We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number, or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. Coming up on the bottom of the hour, the status of the war. Just what have we done? How have we decimated Iran? Because it's humorous to watch the Democrats, well, we're not really accomplishing anything. Of course we are. What have we accomplished? We will let you know. Look, we're looking at this from a realistic standpoint. When you fight a war, we understand that the politics in the United States to get the job done is something that's extremely important, getting the support from the people of the United States for it, especially if you're going to go long term. You will get that approval if you get a victory, and I would say if you get a victory in the next month, and the victory is transparent, you can define the parameters of the victory that is very easily understood by the American people. We've already laid out what the ultimate victory would be, which would be the hundreds of thousands of Iranian people on the streets saying that they're free. There's an interim government. The United States is still, promising the Iranian people that the massacres aren't going to happen anymore. And if the new transition government or the government, whatever it ends up being, if they get out of line, we will take care of them. If you have something like that and the people in the United States can see it, that would be the absolute ultimate victory. But strategically, we've decimated the Iranian military. We have decimated command and control. We have decimated the leadership there, which is one of the problems. They really don't know who's in charge. They talk about the parliamentary leader and whether they might be able to negotiate with him. Still don't know whether he has any clout with whatever's left of the leadership of the Revolutionary Guard. There's so many unknowns here, and I saw that the best war strategy Iran has right now is the unknown. When you don't know what's going to happen and how it's going to end and what victory actually is, it is the unknown that creates a political problem for the president here in the United States. You don't know how it's going to end because the goal was just not to knock out the military. The goal was, even though they denied it up front, the goal was regime change. That was always the goal. And to get to that goal, you have to rely on the people of Iran, which means it's out of your control. The only way it's in your control is if you find leadership that is willing to be monitored by the United States to make sure that they do each and everything that we would want in some kind of a deal. And do I see that coming in the next couple of weeks? Highly unlikely.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Relief Factor Studios.
And we are Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. How is the military part of the war going? All right. Because you hear a lot of stuff out there, even a few that Iran is winning the war. Noah Rothman wrote an op-ed piece, or not an op-ed piece, wrote in National Review that unlike the Iraq war, there's just a list here of a bunch of things that we've accomplished. So be patient because you don't really hear a lot of this. You don't hear, well, strategically, what is happening? What are our victories? Unlike the Iraq war, there was no long prelude to this war, but like the Iraq war, this conflict began with an attempted decapitation strike. This time it succeeded. U.S.-Israeli forces neutralized roughly 40 senior Iranian leadership figures in the opening of the war. As the conflict progressed, Iran's armed forces and intelligence leaders, national security figureheads, senior Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and paramilitary commanders, and the brain power behind Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program met the same fate. Israeli forces lure Iranian military targets into kill boxes of their choosing, make direct phone calls to individual commanders to intimidate them into surrendering, hunt them down in the wooded hills to which they fled. Iran's command and control is decentralized, but these operations have contributed to Iran's inability to coordinate strategically coherent attacks on U.S., Israeli, and Gulf region targets. Meanwhile, the U.S.-Israeli campaign has enjoyed spectacular tactical successes on the battlefield. Within the first 2 weeks of the war, U.S. and Israeli forces unleashed a blistering wave of strikes on Iranian air defenses, radar systems, missile launch and storage facilities, drone capabilities, naval mines, air bases, and the pillars of regime stability. The Iranian Air Force is gone. Most of Iran's air and missile bases have been rendered inoperable. Its naval installations along the Persian Gulf incapacitated, and about 120 Iranian ships were disabled or sunk. What remains of Iran's once formidable network of terrorist proxies across the Middle East was decimated, their leadership ranks decapitated, and their local support networks disrupted or entirely wiped off. As the U.S.-Israeli war against the Islamic Republic entered its fourth week, their joint force embarked on what their military brass called Phase 2 of the war, taking out Iran's military infrastructure. The U.S. and Israel hit Iran's nuclear facilities, including those that were struck in June of 2025, as well as new targets, including undeclared nuclear sites. U.S.-Israeli strikes also began targeting Iran's defense industrial base, its missile production facilities, drone manufacturers, explosive production plants, and sensitive electronic developers came under sustained bombardment. Before the end of the third week of fighting, the United States had achieved command of the skies in southern Iran sufficient enough to deploy vulnerable air assets like the A-10 Thunderbolt and Apache attack helicopters over the Strait of Hormuz to strafe small, fast attack boats and disable drones in flight. Similar air superiority had already been achieved over Iran's northwest, including the capital city, allowing the non-stealth aircraft to execute sorties using precision-guided gravity munitions and allowing the U.S. to relieve the strain on its arsenal of missiles and interceptors. The U.S. and Israel continue to degrade Iran's ability to launch the ballistic missiles, with which Iran has terrorized its neighbors from the onset of the war. Their air forces have struck Iran's buried missile storage facilities and above-ground arsenals. They loiter above the entrances to intact bunkers, hitting them only when they spot activity. As of March 23rd, the Israeli Defense Forces estimate that about 330 of Iran's 470 ballistic missile launchers have been rendered inoperable or inaccessible. The roughly 4,700 strikes on Iran's missile program alone are estimated to have eliminated 70% of Iran's launcher array, contributing to a 90% decrease in Iran's missile launch capability. Some Iranian drones and missiles continue to evade the region's layered air defense systems, striking civilian infrastructure and non-combatant targets like urban and suburban neighborhoods with devastating effect. Indeed, to evade Israel's anti-missile defenses, Iran has deployed cluster munitions against Israeli civilian targets, a tactic with no objective other than to maximize civilian casualties. But unlike Iran's coordinated drone strike on Saudi Arabian oil processing facilities in 2019, for example, Iran's missile attacks on its neighbors lack the coordination to achieve any strategic effect. They have not sapped any of Iran's regional targets of their will to support and prosecute the war against this regime. And for all the visible signs of stress in the political class in Washington that this war has exposed, Iran is reeling too. The statements issued by the remnants of its leadership are frequently contradicted by the actions of its field commanders, suggesting a breakdown of communications. The degree to which Iran's omnidirectional attacks on soft targets across the Middle East have emboldened its neighbors to back the U.S.-Israeli campaign or even to actively participate in it, has chastened Iranian leadership and compelled them to issue conciliatory pronouncements, which again were betrayed as hollow by continued Iranian attacks on its neighbors. IDF military intelligence has identified low morale, absenteeism, and burnout among the Revolutionary Guard ballistic missile units within the past week. The Institute for the Study of War reported Tuesday night that the IDF said that ballistic missile unit soldiers have refused to go to launch sites due to the fear of Israeli strikes. U.S. assets are still pouring into the region. We know about the 82nd Airborne and the Marine units and thousands of U.S. Army paratroopers en route to the Gulf as the U.S.-Israeli air campaign methodically neutralizes Iran's power projection capabilities. Meanwhile, Iranian representatives insist that the Strait of Hormuz is in fact open, despite reports that Iran laid about 12 naval mines in its waterways. Those vessels that neither participate in nor support acts of aggression against Iran can pass safely, Iran said, so long as they pay an extortion fee. Opening the strait to maritime traffic, which U.S. commanders repeatedly assured anyone willing to listen would happen eventually, following the significant degrading of Iran's military capabilities, will follow the clearing of the strait's mines and the elimination of the Iranian road mobile anti-ship missile threat, possibly with deployment of the Marine amphibious readies groups on the ground. That would be a dangerous operation if successful, though, demonstrating that the strait is clear to merchant and naval traffic would be to duplicate the operations in the Gulf in which the U.S. Navy engaged in 1907 and 1988. If such an operation succeeded, it would deprive Iran of one of its last points of leverage against the West. There is a temptation abroad, in the press at least, to yada away these spectacular tactical successes in combat against a nation that as recently as 2022 commanded one of the most formidable militaries on earth. Iranian bragging and that of the terrorist in its orbit set into motion a sequence of events that would eventually end in its destruction, but it was by no means foreseeable at the onset of this decade that the Iranian threat would suffer such a lopsided series of defeats. So there you go. And they go, the U.S. and its allies have been wargaming scenarios involving conflicts with Iran for decades. Those simulations provided Western war planners with little confidence that such a mission would succeed. Rather, it was likely to stoke a global conflict typified by terrorist attacks throughout the West and unacceptable losses on the Middle Eastern battlefields. And following a sustained and bloody war, it was by no means assured that the United States would achieve its objectives. Quote, compared to what is a crucial question. Answering its ground observers' conclusions is a set of empirically verifiable conditions and test them against conceivable counterfactuals. Compared to those scenarios, this war has so far been a spectacular tactical success. So there you go. Just wanted to, I know that was a little bit long, but I don't even hear a lot when I just go through just social media and generally just the narrative that you see from the networks overall, the specifics of tactically whether we're winning this thing or not. You know, there's always that. To us, it's never been a question if you've been listening to the show. You know, we obviously, we have. It's more on how do you get regime change? How do you get that point of getting regime change? We've already heard that the White House, the United States, has said no to the former Shah's son going in, saying, nope, don't want to work with him. He's been away too long. We need to find somebody inside the country to work with. We don't know what that may be at this time, even though we have seen that the leader of the parliament has been viewed as someone that some believe, not all, but some in the administration believe that they could get to cooperate with the United States. Others believe that's not the case. So that's really the great unknown, is how do you get the regime change? How do you get that? Now, even if you don't get that, you have decimated Iran for the next decade. Is that enough, though? You see that Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, they don't believe it. They look at it. And the other point that's been brought up is Israel. Israel knows this is the closest they can get. They've gotten to decimate completely and get regime change in Iran. So even if the United States backs off, the other thought, the process, the other thought is that, all right, we're just going to use Israel. Israel will do it. Israel will just keep going after anybody who gets into a leadership role, and because there's no military to do anything against Israel. And then the United States will probably be involved in covert activities that we'll never know about. But that's the big question. What is a declared victory? Military? Yes, we have a huge military victory. What's the political victory? Because that's what will drive public opinion here in the United States and worldwide. We are Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley. He has a morning off. I'm Gary McNamara. I don't. Wow. I was just reading a little while ago, Steve Hilton, who's running for governor of California, just blasting the Democrats in California for basically forcing the cancellation of the debate yesterday. It's like all the top people, the Democrats, we've seen this. We saw it in Texas. The Democrats are now realizing that probably the best way to win elections are to have the white man, be the top candidate. I guess you could throw a white woman in there, too. Yeah. Just too funny.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. I'm here. You're here. Let me... just a little sip of water. Nah, no coffee. No. Just sip of water. I had coffee when I woke up. That's all I need. All right, let's continue this narrative. One of the things that we started a couple of weeks ago was what we believe is the Democrats' new strategy, and that's to be stupid. That politicians and media people, political activists that support Democrats, want to put out the message to the world, to their own Democrat constituents that vote for them, that we are stupid just like you. We don't know how to do basic tasks. You know, these things are just too complicated for us. And it all started a couple of weeks ago. I just want to go through it before I give you more evidence here of where the Democrats are going, just for those people that might not have heard. When Bernie Sanders came out and then Governor Newsom of California and said, we don't know how to find our birth certificates. We don't have the capability of doing it. And then on Morning Joe the other day, you had Mike Barnacle, you had Joe Scarborough, and then Mika. The exact same thing. We don't know. I have no idea. I wouldn't know how to find my birth certificate. And as we're calling it, we're a variety of different names. One of it is caveman lawyer marketing, and it goes back to the old SNL bit with the late Phil Hartman, where he was the caveman lawyer. And he just, I don't know how to operate in your fancy world. I'm just a caveman. And he would, that's how he would address the jury in a number of cases. And it's the same thing that they're doing. And what I believe happened is they realized they got caught. And they were doing their polling and found out that you just can't say that we can't have voter ID because it's racist, because minorities don't have the capability of getting their birth certificate or having ID, because the polling was just so against it. And there was some pushback in the last month as they were promoting it. I remember one focus group. I forgot who did the focus group. I don't know if it was CNN or Fox. But there was a young white male. Well, minorities, they don't have the capability of. And this black woman just said, what are you talking about? That's racist. What do you mean we do? Of course we do. We have license. We have this. And the polling they're getting killed on, by having, by using that excuse, which has never worked for them. It's never moved an inch by claiming that it's racist. But there was pushback calling them racist. So where do you go from that point? And we figured they had to workshop this, because this is now, you've had a number of Democrats come out and say it in the media, and actually Democratic politicians, including Democrat Senate leader Chuck Schumer. They are incapable of finding or even trying to find where their birth certificates are. And what we believe the narrative is we're as stupid as the people that vote for us. Now, we're not calling them stupid. We're saying this is their marketing plan. We can't use the racism card anymore, so we'll use the stupid card. We're the stupid leaders, or we're the stupid media that is incapable of doing common tasks that the rest of the population can do. And all those smarty-pants Republicans say, well, we can do it. Well, we can't because we're all victims. They're victims of their own stupidity. And I saw this audio cut yesterday and said, and we've talked about this before, the using young people who sit there, and when we talk about long-held Democrat established points of view, they claim complete ignorance, like, we never heard of, what are you talking about? This never happened. And this happened on CNN. And this was where Adam Mockler, he's only 23 years old. He's a commentator for Midas Touch Network. They were originally a PAC in March of 2020 that formed in order to go against Donald Trump, and now they're a political activist. They call themselves a news company. They're a political activist organization. They're not looking for the truth, and they've got a lot of young people now trying to put out the message. And as we have said, Democrats haven't changed on anything as long as they continue to promote the radical transgender movement. You know they're not going to change on anything. As long as they continue to promote their opinions on voter ID that nobody is buying. As long as they continue to say we want to protect criminal illegal immigrants. As long as they continue to lie about ICE, you know they're not going to change any of their opinions. Well, this is Scott Jennings with this Adam Mockler from the Midas Touch Network, which, again, is a bunch of leftist political activists talking about, and Scott Jennings talking about, well, the higher gas prices, this is what you've always wanted. This was a goal of the Democrat Party. Here we go. Here's this audio from CNN.
It's going to be a big blue wave. It already was going to be before the war in Iran, and this is the most visceral change that we've seen so far. When I drove to the airport today, I passed by 2 gas stations, and I was paying attention. American families are paying attention to this.
They are.
I'm old enough to remember when Democrats were advocating for higher gas prices to bring about the end of the internal combustion.
You only have to be 5.
Now, all of a sudden, gas prices are.
Wait,
are
which Democrats said I want higher gas prices?
Literally all.
They said I want higher gas prices.
Yes,
and
literally.
gas
that was
prices.
the policy to drive.
You hear that now? They're denying that they didn't want higher gas prices and that Adam Mockler is leading it. Well, what they're doing, they're bringing in, I'm too young to know what the Democratic Party actually stands for and has stood for. And we know it because we've seen what happened in Virginia. They want to bring back the same environmental rules that will raise gasoline prices. And as we played the other day from Obama, we occasionally have to go into the archives to pull out that's skyrocketing because of what's going on in New York right now with Kathy Hochul. And it's like, well, we can't, these environmental rules that we passed that she was for, we've got to slow down because it's raising the cost of energy and it's crushing people. Well, that was the goal. The goal was to raise energy prices. The goal was to skyrocket electricity prices. Obama said it back in February of 2008. And it's all because of the whole climate change. And now you've got Mockler going, oh, well, what are you talking about? What Democrat said that? What Democrat said that? Do I believe he knows? Yes. He's using his youth to pretend that he's ignorant on it. But the rest of them were saying the same thing. Like, well, what are you talking about? What Democrat was ever for this? And it reminds us, if Eric was here, we'd be laughing because it reminds us of Senator Warnock in Georgia. I don't know one Democrat that is against voter ID. Not one. Not one Democrat. And this is where you are right now. This goes back to Carl Rove's column that we read in the first hour that talked about the fact that, the Republicans' best chance not to lose seats in November is the Democrats because they continue to promote things that the American public doesn't want. But think about it in New York. This is where the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party wanted to skyrocket electricity prices and gasoline prices. And on gasoline prices, there you have it on CNN. Oh, we don't know who wanted to do that. Nobody wanted to do that. We're ignorant. We're stupid. We don't know what the Democratic Party has always stood for. They wanted gasoline prices to skyrocket because they wanted to force people into electric vehicles. They said it over and over and over again. Now we don't know what you're talking about. We're just a bunch of idiots. We don't know. And electricity prices? They wanted electricity prices to skyrocket. So solar and wind that is more expensive to produce, that you would even out the cost of it. And so people, would be forced. You could raise the price of oil, raise the price of natural gas, get rid of coal. All those rules and regulations were to make it so more expensive electricity would be forced on the American public. That's what New York wanted to do. And I find it interesting, this maze that Kathy Hochul is trying to maneuver around right now. Well, we just can't do it. We have to slow down on this. Why would you want to slow down? And even the left, the far left's going, what are you talking about? No, this is what we wanted. We want gasoline prices to skyrocket. We want electricity prices to skyrocket. The whole plan was created to do that. Just like the border. I think I read an article yesterday. It was in some conservative publication that said, well, the problem is it was the failure of the failure of the Biden administration to not close the border. No, it was the success of the Biden administration to open the border. That was the whole goal. The goal was to open the border. The goal was to skyrocket gasoline prices in the Democratic Party. The goal was to skyrocket electricity prices and have this legislation. And you see in Virginia, they take over going, we're all about affordability. And what do? Taxes on this, taxes on this. Let's raise energy costs. Let's do more of the environmental stuff. And the voter falls for it. Some of the voters fall for it. I don't want to imply that all the voters fall for it because you don't and I don't. And Eric doesn't. But I just find it interesting that the Democrats are now, and Kathy Hochul, she was in Western New York. A couple of my buddies were telling me about it yesterday. You see Hochul in New York, and I went, yeah. She's saying, I need your help. I need your help. People, I need your help. And it's like, help for what? You should have seen the responses on social media. These were all people, all New Yorkers that were commenting on it. And they were just like, what are you talking about? This was your goal. The goal of the Democratic Party is to skyrocket energy prices. That's the goal. It's like, and so you're saying, I need your help to save me from myself. How do you deal with that? Oh, elect Republicans? Really interesting poll done in New York that we will have for you next. We are Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Product of USA labeling for meat, poultry, and eggs, rolled out this week as part of National Agriculture Week, is also among the several components within USDA's Beef Action Plan, a collaboration between Agriculture Department mission areas and cabinet-level agencies to rebuild the nation's cattle supply, while continuing to build consumer demand for beef as well as expand processing capabilities. Undersecretary for Food Safety Mindy Brashears explains in addition to the Product of USA labeling within her mission area.
Another important aspect of that is what we call beef modernization.
Related to the inspection of beef for food safety and inspection systems.
What we are focusing on is allowing more technical information to be applied to our inspection systems.
The Undersecretary says similar modernizations have occurred within the pork and poultry industries. I'm Ron Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. So, so I said, how do you get rid of the insane Democrat policies? I said, elect a Republican. In the Hochul race for governor this year, according to this was a campaign poll taken by GOP candidate Bruce Blakeman from Nassau County Executive, shows the race now in single digits. Siena did a poll, last month, showed him 20 points behind. Now, this one shows, remember, it is his own campaign poll. I mean, it's a legitimate polling group that did it. It was the McLaughlin and Associates, are considered a conservative pollster, but so is Rasmussen, and they're quite accurate. So, again, are there flaws in this? I don't know, but it's being promoted. And it's being promoted as New Yorkers are furious about electricity prices and energy prices. But the new poll shows him just 9 points behind Hochul, 52-43, with less than 8 months until Election Day. But you know something? Even though they're panicking, and Hochul's panicking about electricity prices, look at California, for example. California Democrats love high gasoline prices. They love high gas. California independents love high gasoline prices. They love the high cost of living. They keep voting Democrats in. If you had the policies, for example, in an Oklahoma, a Texas, whatever, and you were paying $1.50 more. With the refineries gone, they're talking about maybe $2.50 more for a gallon of gasoline. The media would destroy you. And if you were still promoting that, you'd lose elections. California, you don't lose elections. They're okay with it. They want high gasoline prices. Well, they bought into the delusion that the world is ending, which it is not. And remember, that's why in New York, their whole environmental law to skyrocket, their cap and trade law was to skyrocket electricity prices. That was the goal. As we played for you just the other day from Obama in 2008. This isn't an accident. It was calculated. This is what they want. New York Democrats want high gasoline prices. They want high electricity prices. They just want to pretend during an election that they're lowering it, then it goes right back again. And Democrats and independents continue to vote for them. They don't care whether it's too expensive for you to survive.
Catch Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app, available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. By the way, download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. We had played that audio cut from that young political activist with Scott Jennings, when Scott Jennings was saying, "Why are you Democrats against high gasoline prices? You've always been for them." When? We were never for high gasoline prices. They had that young kid on from one of the leftist Midas Touch group. And I've said that's calculated. Let's bring on young people who can claim complete and total ignorance as a part of their debate points. Well, we're the older folks here. Yes, we're the older folk. And hold it. Let me get up here from my chair. Oh, my knees and my ankles. Yes, we're the older folks here, but our minds are working fine. And we have long memories. And we know that high gasoline prices, and specifically when you look at New York and Kathleen Hochul's problem right now, high electricity prices, that has always been the goal of Democrats over the last 40 years. They have wanted to skyrocket electricity prices and skyrocket gasoline prices so you would buy alternative forms of transportation and energy that is more expensive. All the subsidies for solar and wind and electric vehicles was to bring down the cost of that alternative energy by having someone else pay for it. It was never cheaper. Now, how do we know that it's always been the goal over the last 40 years of the Democratic Party to skyrocket electricity and gasoline prices? How do we know it? They said it. Let us go back. Second time I played it this week. And you know why I'm playing it? I got a ton of response. Got a ton of response from our listeners going, whoa, I never heard that. And we should play it all the time now. We should play it constantly. We should even have it as our Kathy Hochul update. Because Obama said this in February of 2008. Here we go. You ready? Just to make our point, and this is not AI, because Eric and I played this 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. It's probably one of the most often played audio cuts of the first 10 years of our show. And maybe we should make it again. Just so you know, all of this is calculated. That when Kathy Hochul talks about the fact of lowering electricity prices that we're killing people and we have to at least temporarily suspend or slow down the increase of cost, what she is saying is something that I was for and all Democrats were for and voted for over and over and over again over the last 20 to 30 years was calculated. It wasn't corporations. It wasn't Republicans. It was Democrats whose goal and only motivation was to skyrocket the cost of what you have to pay for energy. Here is more of our proof.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket.
There you go. Do you need any more, Democrats? Need any more? In case you've forgotten, in case the memory is getting a little bit cloudy. Did Obama really say that? Yes. That has been the goal of Democrats for years. There you go. And we'll play it more. As Governor Hochul in New York is going, oh, somebody, she was actually saying, you've got to help me. You've got to help me. Help me, help me, help. She sounded like Newman. When Newman on Seinfeld goes, help me, help me, help me. She was saying it like she was talking to citizens. Help me, help me. What do you mean? This is something, it's what you and the Democrats created. You wanted higher electricity prices. Help me, help me, help me from myself. That's, like I said, stupidity, ignorance, and help me from my own actions has become the Democrat campaign narrative for 2026. And it might work. Meanwhile, in other areas here, Social Security is facing the threat of insolvency in less than a decade, and a new proposal would cap the amount of Social Security benefits that a couple could receive each year at $100,000. The aging of America's population is draining the balance of Social Security's main trust fund, which is projected to be depleted by 2032. Funds for Social Security benefits are drawn from the trust fund along with payroll taxes, and they would be automatically cut by law at the time of insolvency to match incoming revenue, reducing benefits by an estimated 24% across the board. That's why when the president said, we will change nothing of Social Security in his State of the Union address this year, we just said, well, Republicans have given up on doing it too, because there will be a change in Social Security. There's going to be a change. There's no choice. If you get to that point, they got to cut benefits 24%. So you've got to find the money somewhere, or you got to cut benefits, one or the other. And not taking it serious, not looking at the reality of the economics of Social Security is one of the most irresponsible things Democrats have done for years, and now Republicans have joined on top of it. The Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget launched a trust fund solution initiative to explore options for improving Social Security solvency, with one such proposal capping six-figure benefits to the wealthiest couples. By the way, they may not be wealthy, because you can make a lot of money and not still have a bank account. The six-figure limit proposal would put in place a $100,000 cap on the total benefit a couple retiring at normal retirement age can receive. All right, that would be at 65. The maximum benefit right now that you can receive as a single person is, I think, $3,467, and that is if you get that when you're 65. 70, you get more, but this would be at 65. That it would place a $100,000 cap on the total benefit of a couple retiring at normal retirement age, with adjustments based on marital status and claiming age. For single retirees, the limit on Social Security benefits would be $50,000. Okay, now when I said the amount you can make right now is $34.67, I think it is. That would be for a single person. I'll look up to see what it is for a couple. So single retirees, the limit would be $50,000. They noted that while only a small fraction of retirees receive $100,000 in Social Security benefits as a couple, or $50,000 as an individual, such figures will become more common over time as Social Security benefit formula changes. That would mean, for example, as you get more each year, the inflation adjustment. Again, it would cap the Social Security benefits such that no couples collecting benefits at their normal retirement age, again, that's 65 is normal. 62 is early, 70 is late. And, you make a third more if you wait till 70. It would adjust the limit based on marital status and at age at which they begin receiving benefits. A couple who delayed collecting benefits as long as possible until age 70 would have a $124,000 limit, whereas a couple who started collecting benefits as early as age 62 would have a $70,000 annual limit. I'll have to look at what it is for, what it would be for singles at that age. I'm looking here. The group worked with the Open Research Group to model a trio of options, including a $100,000 limit indexed to inflation. A limit froze at $100,000 for 20 years, and then indexed to average wage growth, and a limit frozen at $100,000, then indexed to average wage growth after 30 years. It found that the inflation indexed Social Security would save $100 billion over 10 years, while closing 20% of Social Security's 75-year shortfall and 55% of the shortfall in the 75th year. Both the 20 and 30-year fixed limit would, before indexing, would save $100 billion over 10 years, and while the 20-year proposal would close 25% of the shortfall, the 30-year option would close 55% of the 75-year shortfall and 60% of the shortfall in the 75th year. So they're projecting way out, 75 years. So you're talking about the fact that the majority of the middle class would take a huge hit, 25 years from now. Because 25 or 30 years from now or 50 years from now, if you didn't index for an inflation, $50,000 for a single person is not going to be a lot of Social Security money. It's going to, and so that's the entire point. Now, is this a possibility of something Congress would do? Yeah. Because what you want to do is you want to be out of office by the time that people actually, see the change in Social Security. The majority wouldn't on this. This would be projected way out. We are Red Eye Radio.
When it comes to supplements, there are two things that matter the most. It works and you can trust it. Many hosts on the radio have been endorsing Relief Factor for over a decade. That's over 10 years of lending their voice to help get you out of pain naturally. Why? Because it works. Plain and simple. Before taking Relief Factor, I suffered with aches and pains from years of running and, of course, aging. Every day I was in pain, no longer with Relief Factor. I love it. I take it every day. You should, too. They offer a quick start option, even though they lose money on it, so people can try it for themselves, and you can see how life-changing it can be. Let's get you started. Try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start, just $19.95. Visit ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. That's ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. Use Red Eye at the drop-down for your 3-week quick start at just $19.95.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Eric has the morning off. All right, so I did some figures here. And sorry I messed up because I was checking the normal retirement age at 65. See, that proves I'm old because it's 67. And a single person retiring, the maximum they could make from Social Security is about $5,100, which, gets you to That would be what, 60,000? Yeah. And it would hit at 50,000. Wow. And the top for couples is 100,000. So right now. So it would affect very few people to start out because most people don't make the maximum salary you need to make that, to make that amount. But as the years go by, and this is that Social Security plan that's out there, that if you don't index it to inflation, it would encompass 30% of the people. Let me see. 30% of the people by 2060 would be affected by it.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.